The ancient poet Hafiz has stated, "Nothing evolves us like love." Reading the final line of that poem resonated so loudly for me, it made my heart sing. As I'm here to tell you how our story and our evolution, by loving unconditionally and embracing our creativity, has seen us through the darkest time of our lives. 4 years ago, we were high-flying, jet-setting designers. We worked hard, we played hard. We lived in Hong Kong, we had a great time. We were urban nomads, always on the move, whether for work or adventure. But on the 27th of September, 2014, I woke to find Rob stumbling around our hotel room. I opened the blinds and he screamed in pain. Unable to tell me what was wrong, I called an ambulance. And despite all my best efforts, he lost consciousness after suffering a massive seizure. The 7-minute ambulance journey felt like 7 hours. And when we arrived at the hospital, there were a lot of questions and tests before it all became very clear that something was seriously wrong. They told me Rob was dying. They rushed him into surgery. After that, all I could do was wait. 12 hours later, the surgeon, Dr. McGee Collette, came to explain everything. Rob had suffered a near-fatal intercerebral haemorrhage, a severe bleed on the brain. They'd done their absolute best to save him and induced him into a coma to heal. The surgeon was frank. If Rob survived, he would never be the same. Rob's condition critical, intensive care unit teams monitored him 24/7. Rob's family, my family, all came to be by his side. It was a long wait. And as we were on holiday, I had no home to go to, so I just stayed by his side the entire time. I would talk to him, read out loud. I wanted him to know that he was loved. Not just by hearing my voice, but skin on skin. Contact, super vital. I held his hand, I massaged his limbs. Anything I could do to let him know that I was there. Rob was in a coma for 3 weeks, and when he finally came round, he was unable to speak, read, or write. No power of communication. And he was entirely paralysed on the right side of his body from head to toe. We had to keep reminding him of where he was and what had happened, always radiating love with the gentle mantra that all will be okay. We think he understood, but all he could do was squeeze my hand. As Rob gained more consciousness, his fear grew, and he was very confused. It became clear that his vision was distorted too, on top of all of the paralysis and confusion and not knowing what was going on. He couldn't see in his right eye whatsoever. And he didn't really understand what had happened. But he recognised me and his family. But other than that, it was back to square one. Having to relearn basic human skills makes you realise what we all take for granted. Rob had to learn how to swallow, how to chew food, before greater challenges like standing or walking were to come. Some rehab centres we contacted thought Rob was a lost cause. So whilst we waited to find the right spot, Rob's sister and I would get through the days by talking to him, telling jokes, trying to lift Rob's spirits as best we could. But then I had an idea. We're both designers. As designers, you creative problem solve, you find solutions. And perhaps creativity could help us out of this one. Once I'd stumbled across the idea, I knew what he needed, both at work, at home, at the bar on a Friday night. Rob was always sketching and doodling. He left post-it notes of half-baked concepts like a trail of breadcrumbs wherever he went. I thought, if he can't talk, perhaps he can draw. And if he can't draw, let's show him how. At first it was how to hold a pen, but once he'd mastered that, we started with some simple shapes. I'll draw a triangle now, you follow. A triangle, a circle, a square. It soon came back. And after drawing more shapes, some very funny looking animals, and most importantly, a beloved bicycle, it soon started to flow. The mechanics of holding a pen, the textural and tangible feeling of the paper, the connection of pen to paper, it wasn't just soothing, it was cathartic. It reminded Rob of what he could do. It reminded Rob of who he was. Now, all of this came to me instinctively, so I had no idea this is an actual thing, like science. Professor Barry Kaufman from the University of Pennsylvania's Imagination Institute has explained that sketching is an incredibly powerful tool. It triggers new connections, creates new brain cells. The process is called neurogenesis, and he's not alone, there's so much more. In a TED talk, neuroscientist Sandrine Tourette has explained that we can actually develop new brain cells by our diet and lifestyle. And a group of German scientists have published a study which showed that engaging in art helps with our attention and focus, strengthening our neural pathways. And not only that, but the combination of motor and cognitive processing promotes brain activity. Creativity and art makes your brain grow. Wow, seriously, I honestly still don't think I can explain the science deep down to you, but instinctively I knew that this would help Rob. And with the power of love and his pen, drawing became Rob's key. It opened his world and helped him communicate. And thank goodness he's always been left-handed too. By this point, we'd gone from minute by minute, hour by hour, to day by day. But the realisation came heavy that Hong Kong could never be our home again. With Rob now comfortable in rehab, I left him with his sister and fearlessly went back to Hong Kong alone to pack up our life and tie up loose ends. We had to work towards getting Rob back to England to be with family. The only way for Rob to move forward was repetition. Not just physically, but mentally and linguistically too. The only way to develop constant repetition to retrain the brain. And it was working. Little by little, Rob was getting physically stronger day by day. But speech is a different problem. Words just didn't come, or weren't quite what he wanted to say. Nevertheless, we got by. Rob was sketching when he couldn't express it with words, and it helps that I'm pretty damn good at Pictionary. But even when he couldn't express it with words or through sketching, I somehow knew what he was trying to say. A reminder that in all of this, we were solid. A couple in love. Connected. And there's some science to describe this as well. When couples reach a state where their nervous systems are ticking over in perfect harmony, it's referred to as being physiologically aligned. And as fate would have it, that term was coined during a research project at the University of Sydney. After 3 months down under, it was time to come back to the UK for good. And to call it an understatement, it was a shock to the system. Rob had barely left his hospital bed in 3 months, and now here he was, embarking on 2 flights across the world with medical assistance and the long drive back up to Lincoln, the city he grew up in. He'd come full circle. Every slate had been wiped clean, and it was time to start again. After another 3 months in Lincoln County Hospital, Rob was able to return home to his parents. And that's when the real hard work began. Rob still only had a little speech, and we were still communicating by sketching, body language and sheer persistence. Mobility was still a real issue, but it was the cognitive ones that were the worst. Basic everyday tasks within the home had to be relearned. Rob had to learn how to shower, how to get dressed, how to make a cup of tea. And as always, I loved hard, and I encouraged Rob with all his rehab, and I encouraged him to continue to draw, to sing. We role-played, practiced talking any way we could, and he was determined and driven. Yet I noticed he was still a little low, and finding solace in his notebook. Drawing not just the way to communicate, but it was starting to comfort him. A skill from before that was not lost. And in fact, with all his practice, he was now 10 times better at it. So I encouraged Rob to attend a local art class, as much to gain experience and build his confidence out in the world as to improve his art skills. It was a safe space with kind people who encouraged Rob, and the fact that his brilliant ideas were still in him, with a passion for good aesthetic, style and design, and also his wonderful sense of humour, which we needed, as we had to come to terms with our new life somehow. And this didn't just happen to Rob, it happened to me too. I'd given up my life as I knew it to care for Rob, but I needed to find myself again, start to establish myself too. But where to start? Lincolnshire isn't known for its fashion scene, but skills are transferable, right? Sadly, no. And it turns out that handing your CV with high-powered design jobs from around the world doesn't actually guarantee that doors will open. But I needed to start work again. So I decided to create my own door. I founded lifestyle brand and studio, Moments of Sense and Style, or MOS for short. And to encourage Rob and build his confidence, I briefed him to draw each destination of the scented candles that I created, that shared our story, our journey of light and hope. Having a focus, a sense of purpose, it was huge for both of us. Rob thrived at the challenge. Art and creativity, not just an outlet for us, We both feel passionately that creativity can heal. And the drawings for Moss were a turning point. At first, Rob drew to communicate, then for therapy, and now for pleasure. We both feel passionately that creativity can heal. And Dr. Daisy Farncourt from the University of College London has stated recently that art should be available on prescription, not just as a rehabilitation technique, but as a preventative measure, as medicine. And this echoes everything that we've experienced over the last few years. It's quite a story. It's raw, it's real, it's ours. And at times it's got very dark for us, especially with the ongoing complexities of brain injury recovery. We're still finding our way through, but we've started to heal. We can process and express the pain and grief of the life that we once knew. And we owe that to creativity. There's power in creativity. There's power in love, and these aren't new concepts. But as a society, we're moving further and further away from love, from expression, from humanity. We're losing the connection to ourselves and to others. Love and creativity have empowered us to face death in the face and come out the other side stronger. We've worked, we've loved, and we've created harder than ever before, but more importantly, we're still here. And we're still smiling. And we're still together. And if we can make it through this, we can make it through anything. And maybe whatever you're going through, perhaps it could work for you too. We are proof that this idea is not just worth sharing, but worth living by as well. Thank you.